Welcome back. My next guest is no stranger to controversy. The engineer who rose to the top of the power utility Eskom was embroiled in a personal scandal that led to him being linked to the broader state capture allegations. Eskom is seen as being the epicenter of the shenanigans. Mr. Matshela Koko has taken the fight to his detractors whilst vehemently denying any wrongdoing. He has been critical of the process of investigating the corruption allegations, of the way in which the new leadership at Eskom was established, and to the way the Independent Power Producers Agreement was entered into by the government of President Cyril Ramaphosa. Mr. Matshela Koko joins me on the show, and a pleasure to have you with us, Matshela.
Good evening, Tim, and good evening to your viewers.
Well, I think it was late night viewing, if I recall, when you were appearing in Parliament when you said your blood is blue, meaning that Eskom was coursing through your veins. You've been there with Eskom or had one formal relationship with the organization for how long?
So, when you are associated with an institution for 31 years,
yeah,
the organization, they took you to school, they took you to high school, and took you to university, and you worked for it for 23 years as an engineer and rose right up to the chief executive, then your blood got to be blue.
But now, after all of that, high school, university, internship, full employment, rising through the ranks to the top as chief executive, for it to end up in the way that it did, how did that make you feel?
All things come to an end. I think I had a very, very good career in Eskom. I've made my mark in Eskom. Even today, when I meet my colleague, and they call me, that engineer that introduced Formula One in Eskom. We turned Eskom around. We turned Eskom from the time of load shedding to performing at a peak, 85% load factor. We thought we've put load shedding behind us. We stopped burning diesel. We said these assets of Eskom are like Formula One cars, and they must perform in the same way as Hamilton performs.
But then the argument would be Eskom was turned into a very expensive Formula One performing company, that the resources were being burned at Eskom, a lot more money was being spent, and the borrowings went up, and more people were being employed, and therefore others say, well, Matshela Koko might be a great guy and has become a top engineer, but he's responsible for the mess that Eskom ended up being in ultimately.
When I left Eskom, we had a plan, and here was our plan. We're going to reduce the burden on the fiscus by reducing the contingent liabilities by 105 billion rands in the next 5 years. We're going to increase sales by 8% cross-border and 2.1% locally. We're going to reduce the coal spend by 53 billion rands, scrap 25 billion rands out of capital. That was increase the EBITDA margin by 35%. That was going to make Eskom the company to be envious of. I don't know what happened since I left.
But here's the point.
Honestly, don't understand.
Here's the point. And the interesting thing about your story is that it played out in the public domain,
yes,
right? Somebody would say, well, you have all these plans. You should have implemented them. The problem is you got involved in things you should not have been involved in. For instance, the stepdaughter case where the money was given to a company or a contract rather associated with her. Secondly, signing agreements in the middle of the night to give rights to the Gupta family, the Tegeta mine, the Tegeta deal as it is known, that if you did not do those things, maybe we'll be telling a different story now.
Excellent, Tim. Let's take my daughter.
Yeah.
I was charged by Eskom. I was charged for conflict of interest. I was acquitted I was the first one in Eskom who never opposed, and deliberately so, a public hearing. When the media came to apply for a hearing that I was charged in for giving my daughter R1 trillion, I said to my lawyers, we must not oppose.
R1 trillion? Was it billion?
A billion rands.
Oh, I nearly fell off my chair.
I said to my
up to that.
I said to my lawyers, don't oppose it. Let the public come in. let the public hear for themselves. The public came in, it was all on national television, it had its own drama, but I was acquitted. Other people have been charged for the same thing, have been acquitted. The story is, Eskom can't present a prima facie case that indeed I've given my daughter a contract. It's a dead story. I would be in jail.
Let me just get your thought on it. What do you think was happening when that story came out? What do you think might have been behind that?
We have a benefit of hindsight, Tim.
Yeah.
And I will link to the interview that just came out. Sunday Times was visited by the Hawks 2 weeks ago, precisely because of the complaint that I laid. I was the complainant. I got feedback from the Hawks that we went to Sunday Times because I went to the Hawks and says, here is the information. I know my former colleagues at Eskom paid journalists to write these stories about me.
Journalists were paid?
Of course. And the matters before the same journalists, by the way, that have left Sunday Times, one is still left. So we will be entertained because the matter is still yet to go to court. And you will fall off your chair when the matter ends up in court. One journalist is still to come, Sabelo Sikiti, still to give his version to the police. The rest, I'm afraid you're going to fall off your chair. My colleagues that I trusted worked with the journalists to write stories about me to get me out of Eskom. That's what happened.
So, just a side question.
Yes.
What is your confidence level in the journalists or the media then? I'm going to ask questions.
I think journalism today in South Africa is in tatters. I say so because of my experiences. I say so because I am working with the police to deal with the Sunday Times. I think journalism is at its worst level today.
And as you say, you're pursuing the matter through the police?
Well, Sunday Times was visited by the Hawks on my matter. The editor of Sunday Times was interviewed by the Hawks on my matter. I'm advised by the Hawks after that visit that he was in China, he'll come back after 9 days, he will give his version, his statement. Now, that's what is happening.
Okay, I will follow that story very closely, and I hope...
I will even give you a case number.
What is it?
I will give you the case number.
At the time or now?
What I'm saying is I will even give you the case number, you can follow it up.
Okay, all right. Let's talk about the other matter then of the Tegeta that
yes.
way it was said. You proactively went out of your way and applied pressure to make sure that the Guptas benefited unfairly in that contract.
Well, you must go back one step further.
Yeah.
First, the story says Mr. Koko lied on national television. That's the first story.
Yeah.
A gentleman by Goma, who is at Eskom, went to Parliament and said Mr. Koko is discredited because he committed a cardinal sin by lying on national television. My response to Advocate Vanara was, Mr. Marara, cut to the chase. Play the video. Show me where the lie is. We played the video. There was no lie.
Yeah.
I answered truthfully, and I can assure you that even the parliamentary inquiry will come out and will not show the lie that I showed. So let's park it. We followed Eskom processes. We did not create any emergency on coal, and we signed. I signed the deal. I signed the pre-purchase agreement. Now, here's what's important, Tim, that the media that I think is captured does not tell. Since 2007, Eskom contracts have increased by 17% year on year, cumulatively over 400%. In the year I signed that contract, the 17% became 3.5%. Now,
so what do you think is at play here that led to you being singled out?
We were caught up in the body politics of the ANC, in particular in the build-up to Mangaung. That's all what we were caught up in.
Explain.
We were caught up in that.
Explain that.
First, my views on nuclear are technical, they are rational. The media presents anybody who has rational views on nuclear to be pro-Zuma, pro-Gupta. Anybody who presents a rational view on why IPPs should be implemented at the cost and pace that the country can afford as a Ramaphosa value. So that's what I was caught in. Now, here's a nice one. Cabinet took a decision that Mr. Koko must be dismissed. We don't know what he did, but he must be dismissed. I got a call from the DG of Public Enterprises. Says, I just came out of the meeting with the president. He says you must go. He was the deputy president then. He says you must.
You're talking about the current president.
He says you must go. The new board that is not even there will find a reason. Will find a reason of why you must go.
Is that what happened?
That's what happened. We'll find a reason why we must go. That's what happened. Now, what followed then was just an implementation of that illegal instruction. Now, we ended up in court. We ended up in the labor court. Eskom said to the labor court, Mr. Koko must go because he's the face of corruption. Judge Mushona said to Eskom, I hear you, tell me why you say so. Halfway down the arguments, Eskom abandoned that line. Says, no, we're abandoning that line because they could not give the argument. Not only did they abandon the line of Mr. Koko being the face of corruption in Eskom at the labor court, but they've abandoned it today at the High Court in Pretoria. They have taken NERSA to court against the NERSA ruling. In there, they say, no, corruption is not our problem. Maladministration is not our problem. So they've abandoned that line too.
So what is the problem now, you think? Or what are they saying?
Well, they put the blame on a cost-reflective tariff. They say we've never had a cost-reflective tariff. That is why we are where we are.
If I understand you correctly, you're saying that the case against you is being made up as you go along.
Of course. Of course. If what has been said about me, both on my daughter's case and on the Gupta case, I would be in jail. Eskom says they've opened a case against 10 people. It's 18 months, Tim. I'm yet to be interviewed by the law enforcement agencies.
We'll find out why that is so. Matshela Koko is the former chief of Eskom, has been embroiled in all those controversies. We've aired and explored some of those, but there are a few more details that he's going to share with us, I expect, in a moment. Don't go away. Otherwise, participate on Twitter in this conversation. The hashtag, the Modise Network. We'll be back in a moment.